Well, earlier we brought you the story of a new threat to American soil made by the East African terror group Al-Shabaab. This is the same group that claimed responsibility for an attack on the Westgate shopping mall in Nairobi, Kenya in September of 2013. Now, that attack killed 63 people and left more than 173 others injured. The group is calling for similar attacks, specifically naming a mall in Minnesota, the home of the largest Somali population inside the United States. We're joined now by David Katz. He is CEO of Global Security Group. David, welcome to Arise News Now.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, we've seen the horrific images of what happened at the Westgate Mall in Nairobi, and of course, most recently in France and Australia. I guess the question, are the malls here in the United States prepared for an attack like this, in the aftermath of 9/11?
The shopping centers, malls, places like that are not prepared typically for terrorist attacks. Their mission is different. It's prevention of common crimes, shoplifting, vandalism, car theft. It's not set up to deal with acts of terrorism or armed men making incursions with the intent of killing people.
Well, that's actually sobering news to hear that. I'm going to get into that a little bit here, but I also want to talk a little bit about the fact that we haven't had to deal with attacks like these in the United States, and mainly because law enforcement and our intelligence officials have, thwarted these attacks. Thank goodness. What can the American public do right now, absorbing all sorts of information to make them safer in the event of an attack in a mall?
If you're in a mall, the first thing to do, you have to understand that your personal safety is a personal responsibility. The guards, the police department, it's going to be a matter of time before they can respond and take action. If you hear gunshots, run the other way. Get down behind cover. Don't wait and cower in a place where you can be trapped and ultimately injured or worse. As the gunman, typically what they do is they go methodically from place to place,
right,
and they'll be shooting people. So try to run away from the sound of gunfire. That's not a plan of action for a mall. It's more of an individual responsibility, or if you're out shopping with your family, flee. Getting out of the place is your best safety.
The gun lobby, and this is, of course, a big issue here in the United States where there's so many guns. They're saying perhaps if people carried more guns, that would help thwart an attack or at least stave off any kind of potential terrorist attack or any other kind of attack by someone who's mentally ill or whatever in a mall or elsewhere in public. Do you agree with that theory?
Look, we have a long history of private citizens taking action and stopping attacks. A great example on the Long Island Railroad some years ago was private citizens who took down Colin Ferguson.
Sure.
So you have a situation where arguably a person who was armed and trained could take action. Certainly if you have no other choice, you're cowering in a store, you'd be quite appreciative if someone was able to save your life in that manner. The better way, I think, would be not to rely on citizens. I mean, it's great if it happens. The better way to do it is to have a more comprehensive strategy in shopping centers, in schools, in hospitals, in any place that's designated more or less a soft target. Because yes, a private citizen can take action. Before I was a federal agent, I had a pistol license. I actually took action 3 times, stopped felonies.
Wow.
So that's not uncommon. On the other hand, I wouldn't rely on private citizens as your mainstay in a comprehensive strategy. So you really need to have a well thought out plan for places like malls to deal with, God forbid, if it happens.
We've seen again these images, the horrific images, particularly from the Westgate Mall. We see these terrorists running around all the place.
Armed with rifles. Yeah.
Yeah. What lessons has law enforcement or security experts learned from that incident?
Well, a couple things. As this is my profession. So you take a mall, for example. Most times you go into a shopping center and you see unarmed civilian guards who, again, are there for public order. There's a medical emergency, more or less to do the commonly expected things of security guards. They're not set up for counter-terror response.
Right.
A way that we, in our company, what we do is we take former law enforcement officers drawn from specialized units, let's say New York City Emergency Services or tactical teams in other parts of the country. They're well trained, they have the ability, they have the background and experience. You mix those individuals with specialized training into a mix of unarmed guards. That's one way to do it. And and additionally, access control, having a comprehensive plan. A mall, for example, if there is an incident like that, they can't just say, oh my God, what do we do now? They have to have a plan in place. What are they going to do? How are they going to get people out? Who's going to respond, if anyone, to the scene? And is there anyone capable of taking action in that eventuality? And of course, how to facilitate the arrival of law enforcement and other first responders. So that's to be kind of a mixed bag. Planning, pre-planning, and of course having personnel on site that could take some action.
You know, you've laid out a detailed and comprehensive strategy for dealing with terrorist attacks here, but you know, you made a very sobering statement when we first started talking that there is really no plan or there's nothing really in place to deal with terrorist attacks. Why so, when you seem to have it laid out? Well,
It's first of all, you have a matter of expense. If you take the average mall owner and you say, listen, this is what I want to do. I want to increase your security budget by $500,000 a year or $1 million a year, but this is what we're going to do for you. We're going to bring in counter-terror trained individuals. They're going to be armed in the event of a terrorist incident. The person who's responsible for writing that check is going to look at you and say, what are the odds that this is going to happen in my mall? There are thousands and thousands of shopping centers all over the country, and the odds that it's going to happen are very, very small. There are, in fact, other ways to moderate your costs in that matter. What I usually suggest is I say, look, you have insurance. Maybe you'll get a reduction in insurance if you have a more comprehensive security policy. In addition, you have plans for fire safety emergencies, non-fire related emergencies, things like that, that trained individuals are also going to be beneficial.
Obviously, a whole lot of things here, but when it comes down to David Katz, it always comes down to the money.
Yeah.
All right, David Katz, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Okay,
Thank you.
good enough. All right, on to some lighter news in America. We head out to Hollywood and our own Shannon Lanier.
Coming up on Arise News Now, we talk everything Oscars, the stars, styles, and statues. We've got you covered.